back to Ladies Can We Talk with Debbie Georgatos on 660 AM The Answer.
And welcome back to Ladies Can We Talk. So glad you tuned in tonight. And I believe we have on the line now Erick Erickson. Hello, sir.
Hi there.
Hi there. You know what? First of all, I'm so happy to have you on the show. My husband and I have been to Red State, enjoyed when you conducted Red State, and we also love your morning email. And if you don't get Erick Erickson's morning email, it's just wonderful. But tonight we're talking about Erick Erickson's new book out, which is called You Will Be Made to Care, and the subtitle, The War on Faith, Family, and Your Freedom to Believe. So it only has one little chapter that's kind of political. It's really just about the protection of faith in America. So it's a fabulous book. Just if you would, just tell us why you got inspired to write this.
Well, a few years ago, when I was still with Red State, someone came and put up a piece when the gay marriage fight was rising and said he didn't care about the issue. He wished we'd stop talking about it. It didn't affect him, his life, his marriage, his job. And I told him at the time, wrote that you would be made to care, that the left would not allow him to sit on the sidelines and say, I don't care about this issue, that he would have to pick a side eventually. And about a year later, he came back and said, I still don't care about the issue. But 2 years after this, he came back and said, okay, I see what's happening here, and I'm concerned. And I finally decided I needed to write this book because as I kept looking around the country, there are more and more episodes of Christian persecution in the United States that do not get any media coverage, but it's a growing trend in the country.
You know, it really is. And I'll tell you that I also often co-host a different radio show on a Christian station, and when they were talking about their Friday afternoon news roundup, which is the one I co-host, they said when they got started, they wondered if they could possibly find 2 hours worth of stories about religious liberty in America, and now we say we can't even get them all in 2 hours. So America's changed. I want to just touch on one story. I'll tell you, Erick, I had your book, and I have these colored stickies, and I was trying to go through them and stick on the pages that I want to refer to in this interview, and the book is just a ridiculous pile of stickies now, so I'm just almost randomly, because there were so many good stories, but for our listeners, in this book, many stories are recounted of actual experiences of Christians in America suffering persecution, and largely relating to whether they or not because of their faith, choose to support traditional marriage or not, or support same-sex marriage. One story was so amazing. This girl, and I don't know if you may have at the top of your head, but a young woman named Emily Brooker, who went off to Missouri State University, and her first year, she was assigned in a class to a same-sex pairing and asked to do a social experiment and write a paper about it. I think most Americans, when I went to college, this wouldn't have happened. Most Americans have no clue these kind of things happen on college campuses.
Right. You know, my freshman year at my alma mater, which was a Baptist-affiliated university, this was back in '93, my professor in one of my freshman classes insisted that all of the people in her class go to a gay bar and had to write about our experience about being hit on by people of the same sex, et cetera. And I refused to do it and nearly failed the class, stood up to the professor and fought her. Luckily, it was a Baptist university, so I called everyone on the board of trustees with an REV period in front of their name. But it's only gone up since then. And it's not just that case. We had another case here in Georgia, a very red conservative state, where a student went to Augusta State University, a publicly run college, and was told she had to sign a statement that her Christian faith would not impede her ability to counsel. And when she refused to do it, they threw her out of the program.
Yep, I read that story too. You know, I think people also hear, I love the way you divide your book up too, because it's one thing to have individual instances where you must do this or do this, but you dig in to make the deeper point that what advocates of same-sex marriage are trying to say is you have to stop believing. It's not even enough to make you do what we think you have to do, bake a wedding cake for a same-sex wedding. There is a deeper determination to say you're going to stop believing what we don't like you to believe.
Oh, very much so. We see this around the country, particularly in employment. If employees are surveyed by the corporation about these issues and they've got disagreements with the way the corporation sees the issue, they either go to re-education diversity programs or they get fired. It really is a growing, awful trend. And again, it's not that you can't just say, I don't care about the issue. The left's going to make you care. You'll either care the way the secular left wants you to, or you'll care the way your faith compels you to. And if you do that, you may lose your job, your career, your home, your business.
It's astonishing. And there's also, you comment in the book, and others have observed too, that if you had told someone in America, even 10 years ago, and certainly 20 years ago, that America's culture would have shifted so much that it was really the supporters of traditional marriage who were on the defense, people would think that was impossible. But there's been just a very organized push by the LGBT supporters. And it's not by a huge segment of society. It's by a very vocal but small group in society.
Yeah, we're really talking maybe 4 to 5% of the population, but it is a highly influential 4 to 5%, highly influential donors, lots of money, active in cultural institutions inside Hollywood and Washington, D.C., and they want to stamp out all dissent. Archbishop Chaput in Philadelphia has a great quote that I use all the time, that evil preaches tolerance until it's dominant, then it seeks to silence good. And that's what we see happening in this country. The dominant cultural forces now believe that Christianity is in decline and should be stamped out, and so you're no longer allowed to dissent to their agenda.
That is a great quote, and that's exactly what we see happening. Another aspect of your book that I would love to have you tell our listeners about, you have a new website, or I'm not sure how new it is, but it's The Resurgent. And in your book, you have chapters that talk about, it's not just lamenting all that's happening in terms of cultural pressure on Christians in America to just submit to the LGBT agenda, to the same-sex marriage agenda, but you spell out ways that Christians can, in an organized way, refute this, stand up and fight it. And you have, I'll just tell our listeners, chapters on The Resurgent: community, believer, family, church, citizen. It's just an amazing, you have really spelled out for people what to do to be part of the fight to stand up for Christian values in America.
Well, I get these books all the time in the mail, review copies, as I'm sure you do, and they lament all of the terrible things happening, but never give you what can you do about it. And I did leave Red State at the end of last year. I wanted to start a new site really focusing on the of a resurgence of conservatives, a resurgence of Christians, resurgence of community in the nation. And one of the things that I observed in writing the book is that for a lot of people of faith, we've become so in tune with the world around us, we don't make time for our faith friends in church. Our house is dirty. We don't want to bring people over and have a meal because it would take too much time to clean up the house. And really one of the easiest things people can do to overcome what the left is doing is just open up your home to fellow believers so they know they're not alone. The left insists that we believe we're alone. They want our kids to think that we're kooks and on the margins of society, and so surrounding our children with fellow believers and ourselves with like-minded Christian believers really helps us fight and overcome and be energized as we go into the world.
I love that. I noticed that I had to smile when I read the part about the clean house, because we certainly have that conversation at home. Oh my gosh, you have to clean up if we're going to have people over. It sounds like such a minutia point, but it was actually a very real. I had the reaction like, yeah, that does happen. It really does. I want to hear something else you talked about in this show. We're always on the advocating, persuading for the right idea of America, standing up for America. So you do talk in your book in the final chapter, The Resurgent Citizen, where you're talking about taking political action. And actually, while I'm getting to this point, could you hold on during our break? I want to get to this, and I'm hoping to get a little bit into the elections. Can you hold on during a break right now?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Don't go anywhere.
We return to Ladies Can We Talk with host Debbie Georgatos on 660 AM The Answer.
And welcome back to Ladies Can We Talk. We are speaking tonight with Erickson, who is the author, along with Bill Blankshain, I believe it's pronounced, of the new book, You Will Be Made to Care. I cannot urge all of our listeners enough. You should buy this book, read it, share it with your friends. It is so packed with examples that talk about how America really is undergoing. There's a siege in America on Christian liberty to practice your faith, to live your faith in your life. But also it has, countless stories. And I'm pretty tuned into these kinds of issues, and I read stories I hadn't read before, but then also has practical advice about how, as a country, as a people of Christian faith, to fight back. So the last chapter talks about, or near the end of the book, talks about taking political action to stand up, be part of the resurgent citizen. And one thing you said, I have to tell you, actually surprised me, which is you talked about the idea, and this, in fact, I'm reading from page 245, America's not a Christian nation. We have to get clear on the distinction between loyalty to the kingdom of heaven and loyalty to the USA. I talk a lot of times about America's Judeo-Christian roots, but are you saying we've kind of lost those roots, or?
Well, I'm saying we've got Judeo-Christian roots, but a lot of times Christians, I find more and more, they make an idol of the country, and that this is a country that God himself ordained and put in place, and they become very angry when they feel like that nation is being lost. And I think we've got to keep our eye focused on the eternal kingdom and not just look at this kingdom. Nations rise and fall all the time, and we've got to be preparing our way through this world to get into the next world. And when people get so bitterly upset, now don't get me wrong, there are things that we should be upset about, but I get yelled at. For example, I took my daughter to a Taylor Swift concert, and Christian conservatives online got upset with me because didn't I know that Taylor Swift was helping Hillary Clinton? One, that wasn't true, and two, I was like, it was a concert with my 10-year-old, and we have a tendency when we do these things to become very angry about things we shouldn't be angry about. We're on the winning team. There is going to be a last day. We're going to win, so we should be really happy warriors along the way.
That's a great story and a great point. I completely agree with you. You also mentioned this about how it could be the case that Christians could help the cause in America by supporting, you use the expression live and let live legislation, which is really this Religious Freedom Restoration Act style legislation, essentially, that says, that it is the courts must allow people to express their religious freedom, and that will be, the court will weigh that in a case where you have someone who's, the example everyone hears about all the time are the bakers, where the bakers will bake you a cake and sell it to you for anything, but if it's for a same-sex wedding, they say that violates my religious faith. That kind of legislation is needed more and more states.
Yeah, very much so. The problem is we get into a tribalism issue to some degree where Christians say, hey, I want the Religious Freedom Restoration Act for me, but I'm worried about it applying to the Muslim or to the Hindu. We either get it for everyone or we don't get it for anyone. And we do have to live in a world where we live and let live. I shouldn't be compelled to provide the gay wedding cake, and the gay person shouldn't be required to provide the anniversary cake for the Westboro Baptist Church. We should just be able to go find someone who agrees with our views, and if no one agrees with your views, well, then the free market says your business will collapse. But having government demand that one person's view of what's right be imposed for everyone is really wrong.
We're speaking with Erick Erickson, and that was a great example and very well said, and I completely agree. And that is kind of more the spirit of America. We weren't founded as a theocracy with the intention of inflicting or enforcing religion on citizens. It really was the idea of actual freedom of religion and respect for other people's freedom of religion, that we may have been imperfect near our founding, but that is the idea of America. And I think it's just amazing we have gotten to a place where advocates of same-sex marriage find RFRA, people use the expression RFRA for Religious Freedom Restoration Act, to be offensive. But I love what you said. Okay, I have to ask because I only have you for about 5 more minutes. So Erick Erickson, this is, we're in the heart of Texas, and it happens that a lot of people I'm aware of are supporting Ted Cruz in this primary. I just have to ask you, so are you still, you're kind of hanging strong with the idea that if Donald Trump wins the nomination, we just can't go there? Or how do you, I was encouraged by yesterday's results. I thought it was a great day for Ted Cruz yesterday.
I thought it was too, and I still think Marco Rubio, the odds are going up that he may get out and rally to Ted Cruz and we can beat Donald Trump. But yeah, I have to tell you that if Donald Trump is the Republican nominee, I'll find a third party to vote for. And when people tell me, well, you made us hold our nose for Romney or McCain, I held my nose for Romney and McCain. I didn't like them. I opposed them in primaries, but I disagreed with them on an issue level. They were good, fundamentally moral men. I disagree with Donald Trump on a moral virtue level. When a man stands up and says he's a very great Christian, those are his words, and then says, I've never asked God for forgiveness and don't feel like I need to repent, those are his words. 1 Corinthians 5, 12, and 13 says that Christians are under an obligation to take a very firm stand against that person.
I think that's 1 Corinthians. No, just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. 1 Corinthian told us that sometime long ago.
That's right. Well, it's a very challenging time, I have to say. We're going to, in the second hour of the show, really going to dissect the outcome of yesterday's, because I think there are many yesterday's primaries and caucuses, because I think there are a lot of good signs for the Cruz campaign. And it's a tumultuous time also for the Republican Party and really getting shaken to its core. And in some ways, it's a good shaking. I think there's a lot of the,
yes.
Yeah.
You know, I disagree with Donald Trump fundamentally about a lot of things, but I understand the anger that is giving rise to him because both parties in Washington have ignored people in the heartland for so long. They've made so many promises, and they've broken so many of them. And I say all the time, I've got a bigger problem with the GOP than President Obama because he's kept all of his promises, and the Republicans have broken all of theirs.
Boy, is that a good point. Is that ever a good point? Well, you know, it's interesting with Senator Rubio. You just would love to know what's in his heart, because I think after the results yesterday and really the entire primary season, you can't really see much of a path to victory. And this prayer has been on my heart. I just think I would love to have him see there's more. The higher, better thing is love of country and preserving our country rather than preserving a slim chance of getting the nomination. So,
yeah, I agree with you on that. And I think at this point, even though Marco Rubio won Puerto Rico today and got all the delegates, he's not going to win Florida. And if he were to join Ted Cruz right now and form a ticket, they could beat Donald Trump.
I think that's so, too. You know, we are talking, folks, again with Erick Erickson. And, sir, I want to go back to your book because I meant to have you do this. The book, again, is called You Will Be Made to Care, The War on Faith, Family, and Your Freedom to Believe. So tell our folks how they can find the book, where they can get it, and how they can learn more about it.
If they go to the website, youwillbemadetocare.com, they can find links to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Lifeway, all the places that are selling the book. And I mean, youwillbemadetocare.com. It is more and more timely, I guess, and we're finding out more and more Christians in this country are being confronted with the issue, and they never even knew it was a problem.
You know, it's interesting. You Will Be Made to Care actually fits the political situation. I was just thinking when you were talking. I run into people who say, oh, I'm not political, doesn't matter to me, I don't like to vote. And I haven't used those words, and I won't steal your line, but it's exactly the same thing. You're going to care someday if we continue to lose our liberties under the march of the American left toward more and more government-controlled society. You'll figure out one day you do care.
You'll figure out you do care, or they'll make you care. If you say, I don't care, they'll tell you you have to. We're finding businessmen losing their jobs because they said, oh, I don't care about this issue, and, well, the left has told them they have to.
Exactly. Erick Erickson, thank you so very much for calling. It was great talking with you.
Thank you.